pistol is loaded.
It seems to me that it's a violation of Rule 1, which is treat all firearms as loaded. And it's a violation of Rule 1 to run a cold range, because what it does is it instills the mindset of, oh, my gun is empty. And when you have that mindset, it causes you to relax. And the last thing in the world I ever want to do when I'm handling a firearm is relax.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I noticed that same thing in retrospect on my own range at the police department. Mm-hmm. We had at that time signs posted everywhere: no loaded guns beyond here, no loaded guns past the parking lot. And there was a rather cavalier attitude sometimes with the officers handling their guns on the range, because, as you said, people assume now that the guns are unloaded, and clearly that is a violation of that cardinal rule.
And and that's when the accidents happen, because if you look at, we have two ranges. Well, we have a number of ranges here, but if you want to contrast the two that I'm at the most, which is the county range, which is I call it the kiddie range, which is they have enforced ceasefires, they have range masters, they have multiple range masters policing the line and going back and forth and checking firearms, and during the ceasefire they go down the line, make sure every chamber is empty. They have the yellow thing, that little flag, the chamber flag. They insist that they don't insist that it be used, but they make sure that the chambers are open during the ceasefire, magazines are out and all that. No one's handling a firearm behind the line when other people go forward and check their targets. That's the places where where accidents happen. Whereas at the other range, the public range way out to the west of there, the Tucson Rifle Club, there are no range masters on the line. Each individual shooter is responsible for safety and enforcing the safety rules. They haven't had an accident there in years.
And I suspect people with any sense make it a point to communicate with the people nearby and let them know, hey, I'm going down range to change targets, and would you kindly either holster that or open that action and while we go down range. How we instill the concept of individual responsibility is kind of every company entity has to do that, and on some ranges, in fairness to them, if you're dealing with a lot of people and you have no idea who they are or what kind of training background they've had, I can certainly see where they might lean toward the nanny approach.
The kiddie range, right?
Cautious.
I don't want to go too far into this without talking about the article that really sort of brought you to light in 1983 to a lot of people in the firearms community, and that was an article in SWAT magazine called "How Close is Too Close." And some people think that there's some kind of an arbitrary 21-foot rule, which really isn't the case. But there is something called the Tueller principle, or it's come to be known as the Tueller principle. In general, what is that principle?
Well, and let me go back and give credit where due. That was it was Masada Ayub who attached my name to it.
He's good at that.
After that article came out, he commented on it, and we had been in contact, and he wrote another article expanding on the concepts. But in answer to your question, it's the idea that the principle is that someone attacking you with a contact weapon, a knife, club, axe, how quickly can they cover the distance and become a lethal threat and justify your use of deadly force to stop them. And we'd like to hear the story about where that all came from, because it's...
Well, I think if you can do it abbreviated, when we got about a minute and a half until the next first commercial break. So
we'll give you the compressed version. I had been training at Gunsight as a part-timer for a few years. I had been assigned to the training unit at the Salt Lake Police Department and was putting some recruit officers through their paces, and we were drawing and shooting and seeing how quickly we could get out of the holster and get hits on target. And a recruit asked me a question during a break about use of deadly force against someone armed with a contact weapon. What he was answering essentially is, how close is too close? He said, we know what to do if somebody pulls a gun, but how about the guy who comes at you with the knife? At what distance has he become a deadly threat? And so I, realizing I did not have a very good answer to that question, later decided to experiment with that. And we had the recruit officer, one take the role of the bad guy, the other take the role of an officer caught surprised, during the headlights mode, and timed how long it took for the bad guy role player to run 7 yards. And it was a surprise to me. We discovered, and this is all, history now, and most people are aware that the average person from a dead stop can cover 21 feet in around a second and a half. We tried it with several people, and it was pretty consistent. And it requires a highly trained individual to reliably and successfully draw and engage a target, draw from the holster and successfully engage a target in a second and a half. And the reason we use 7 yards is because that's a known distance. We knew how long it took us to draw and fire at 7 yards.
How long is it?
And that 21-foot thing, we can go into that after the break if you like. That's terminology I did never use, the 21-foot rule.
Right.
But it's a concept that seems to have stuck, and you're right to ask for clarification.
Yeah, proxemics is, I think, the term.
Proxemics is a term coined, I believe, by Caliber Press.
Right, yeah. All right, stand by for just a little bit. We're up on that first break of this hour, where we are going to actually hear this time from the Goldwater Institute, who truly define the space of freedom, and they are a marvelous think tank. They're emulated throughout the entire country, and they're respected throughout SAME. Dr. Byron Schlomock of the Goldwater Institute says that the United States spends about 16% of its GDP on health care. Many suggest the U.S. emulate practices of Europe and Canada, who spend an estimated 7 to 10% of GDP on health care. Then there's Singapore, which has a healthier population than most, but spends less than 4% of its GDP on health care. Singapore only lightly regulates private health care providers, requiring them to post prices so consumers can shop around. While it provides a safety net for basic health care for the indigent, it requires citizens to be fiscally responsible through health savings accounts. Like Singapore, the U.S. needs to do more to encourage health savings accounts, reduce dependence on employer-provided health plans, and reduce government-provided health care benefits to the barest essentials. Singapore is a lesson in waiting. For more information, see goldwaterinstitute.org.
You're listening to America Armed and Free.
The fastest gun or man alive. I like them both when he moves that Colt 45.